My parents wanted to give my $500,000 inheritance to my sister, their golden child. But a surprising twist from my grandmother exposed the truth and changed everything. The family of a 28-year-old man has a complicated and lengthy history of favoritism. My parents, especially Dad, have always favored my 25-year-old younger sister over me. This predilection began in our early years and only grew worse as we matured. The golden child was Amy. From my earliest recollections, when I was 5 and she was 2, our parents threw her a lavish birthday party that included a bouncy castle, a petting zoo, and professional face painters. That same year, I celebrated my birthday with a small family dinner and a store-bought cake. This contributed to setting the tone for the ensuing years. As we grew older, the distinctions became more obvious. Amy consistently got the best clothes, the newest gadgets, and the most attention. When I was 10 years old, I remember setting aside months' worth of allowance for a new bike. Amy had a tantrum when she saw it because she wanted one too. Instead of teaching her to save or wait, my parents went ahead and bought her a bike that was even better than mine. School was another setting where the bias was apparent. While they typically missed my school festivities, Amy's parents were present at all of hers. In the 4th grade school play, I played the lead role. I was so excited that I practiced for weeks. On the night of the play, my parents were an hour late, so they missed my big scene. Amy complained of a stomach ache, so they were comforting her. Later, she was all right. They had just lost track of time while playing with her. Nothing I ever achieved seemed adequate in terms of academics. Although my parents were rarely aware of my accomplishments, I joined the math club, frequently earned straight A's in middle school, and even won first place in a regional science fair. After Amy received a B+ on one test in her weakest subject, they bought her a new phone and threw her a celebratory dinner to encourage her to keep improving. High school in particular was challenging. I worked hard at everything I did and maintained a 4.0 GPA with the goal of winning their approval. I captained the debate team and served as editor of the school newspaper. Amy spent much of her time with friends and breezed through school, barely maintaining a C average. I was selected as one of 2 junior-year applicants from our university to take part in a renowned Harvard summer program. I felt wonderful, and it was such an honor. When I broke the news to my dad over dinner, he complained and shifted the conversation to Amy's upcoming dance performance. My mother, at least, said, "That's nice." But she left it at that. Amy's concert fell on the same day that I was going for Harvard, so my parents were unable to take me to the airport that evening. I asked a friend's parents for a ride since they wanted to see Amy perform. The process of applying to colleges was another excruciating one. I spent months honing my essays, participating in extracurricular activities, and getting ready for tests. I was accepted to a number of prestigious universities and awarded a substantial scholarship to attend the university of my choice. My parents' response to this, when I brought it up to them over dinner, was hardly bearable. "That's great, but don't get ahead of yourself." My dad said, "College isn't everything." My mother went on, "Just keep us in mind when you're off becoming a big shot." However, when Amy barely made it through high school and decided against going to college, my parents were very accommodating. They never did the same for me, but they applauded her for knowing herself and defying social expectations. In fact, they bought her a car as a graduation present. This ongoing favoritism caused me a significant deal of emotional pain. I struggled with anxiety and hopelessness throughout my teens and early 20s. I realized that my parents' behavior was not my fault when I started therapy in college. It took me years to build my self-esteem and learn how to validate myself independently of my parents' approval. Despite the lack of support from my immediate family, I was nevertheless able to live a respectable life. I had a good job in finance by the time I graduated with honors, and by the time I was 27, I had even bought my own home. Despite my parents' lack of pride, I'm happy with my accomplishments. The current drama, then, starts here. My grandfather passed away recently on Dad's side. He was a prosperous businessman who began with nothing and left behind a large estate. According to his will, he divided his assets evenly between his children, Dad and his siblings, and his grandchildren, which included me, Amy, and our cousins. I received a sizable share of the inheritance, about $500,000. It would have enabled me to make investments for the future, settle my school loans, and maybe start my own business in the future. I was pleased with this unexpected windfall and the opportunities it might bring. However, it was evident that my parents were upset when the will was read. They later pulled me aside and expressed their opinion that I should not have been given an equal share. Amy, who works part-time at a coffee shop and lives in our parents' basement, said that she was in more need of the money because she was in pain. I tried to remain composed despite my shock. I explained that they had no influence over Grandpa's decision-making process. They urged me to behave honorably and give Amy my due share. When I refused, they were furious and started accusing me of being selfish and lacking gratitude. They talked about every instance where they had assisted me that my dad could remember. He prioritized paying for my medically required braces, getting me the absolute minimum of school supplies, and letting me live at home while I was in college, even though I worked part-time to help with the money. Conveniently, he forgot about their numerous shopping sprees, the car they got Amy, and the fact that they still support her at the age of 25. The situation quickly became more serious. My dad decided to take care of matters himself, serving as the executor of the will. He said he would interpret Grandpa's intentions and give Amy my entire share in addition to her own inheritance. He claimed that if Grandpa had been aware of our particular circumstance, he would have wished it. I was shattered. In addition to being clearly against the law, this served as a horrible reminder of how little my parents valued me. I attempted to reason with them by pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all of his grandchildren equally and that he was aware of our situation. My mother then accused me of disparaging the departed by suggesting that Grandpa might have liked something different from what my dad was supporting. When I brought up some memories of Grandpa encouraging me to pursue my academic and professional ambitions, my parents dismissed them as misconceptions. They said Grandpa had quietly expressed concern about Amy's future and wanted to make sure she was taken care of. When I questioned why he hadn't just written the will that way, they didn't have an answer. Although Amy felt uncomfortable with the situation, she refrained from criticizing our parents. She simply shrugged and replied, "Mom and Dad know best." She was obviously not going to be much assistance when I tried to talk to her alone. I sought advice from my paternal grandmother, Grandpa's widow, feeling deceived and hurt. She was furious when she heard what was going on. She told me that Grandpa had not intended this at all and that my parents had no power to change the will. Grandma provided some information that made things clear. My parents reportedly asked Grandpa to leave everything to Amy in his will a number of years ago. Grandpa had adamantly protested, stating that he believed all of his grandchildren should receive the same treatment. In his will, he had even stipulated that anyone contesting the fair distribution would forfeit their share. Armed with this information, I took my folks on. They were shocked when Grandma revealed that they had previously tried to influence the will. My dad tried to defend it by claiming that they were simply concerned with Amy's future, but I could see the remorse on their faces. Grandmother took immediate action. She contacted the lawyer and other executor of the will. She also contacted my dad's siblings, who were just as outraged by what he was trying as she was. Together, they thwarted my dad's plot and ensured that the terms of the will would be followed. My parents are not thrilled with me, but they had to back off. They accused me of inciting the family against them and contended that I ought to have resolved this in-house, rather than enlisting outside help. My mother wept because I had lied to them and divided the family. I claimed that I had never had any expectations of them. They started threatening to cut off all contact when my dad vowed to completely remove me from their will if I accepted the inheritance. My father even said that if I were to inherit their home, I would not be allowed to live there. My mother delivered a particularly sour blow when she said that my taking the money showed that I had never really loved them and was only prepared to make money off of their death. In all of this, my sister Amy finally found her voice. She personally approached me and expressed regret for not defending me sooner. Following some introspection and lengthy conversations with our grandma, she admitted that she believed our parents' preference was inappropriate but had been too afraid to challenge it. We talked extensively and passionately about our early years and how they affected us both. Being the favorite child wasn't as amazing as it seemed, Amy acknowledged. She felt a lot of pressure to meet our parents' expectations and never learned how to stand on her own 2 feet. She related stories of how she longed to do things independently but our parents would step in and take care of everything for her, denying her the chance to grow and learn from her mistakes. This conversation was a turning point in our relationship. We started to repair the sibling bond that our parents' favoritism had severed. Through this family turmoil, the two of us have been getting together for coffee on a regular basis to talk and support one another. Everyone was shocked when she announced that she would use her inheritance to pay for education. She said she was inspired to take charge of her own life after witnessing me defend myself. She first enrolled at a local community college after deciding on her major with the goal of transferring to a 4-year institution. Our parents gasped with surprise. I think they were aware that Amy had not benefited from their babying. My parents' reactions to all of this have been varied and evolving. At first, they viciously attacked us both. Since they claimed that I had turned Amy against them, they attempted to use guilt to get her to drop out of college in order to help the family. When that didn't work, they changed tactics. My mother started to realize how harmful their behaviors had been after having several lengthy conversations with my grandma and witnessing Amy's remarkable change. She has started therapy to deal with her issues and made some tentative attempts at reconciliation. She apologized, acknowledged that she had been unjust, and asked for an opportunity to put things right. It's a gradual process, and although I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm also setting firm boundaries. Sadly, my dad has been less inclined to take responsibility for his faults. He feels like the victim in all of this and is still quite angry. Since Amy decided to attend college, he has been cold toward her and rarely communicates with me. Even though we are both standing firm, it stings to see him isolate both of his children in this way. He has attempted to manipulate us on a few occasions, threatening to sell the house we grew up in if we don't come to our senses, or to forgive us if we realize we were wrong. The extended family's dynamics have undergone a significant shift. I now reside nearer to my grandma and my dad's siblings, who have been really supportive. It has made me feel less alone in my battle after hearing from my aunts and uncles about how they have dealt with my dad's difficult behavior throughout the years. I've also grown closer to some of my cousins who supported me. We can all catch up without being distracted by the drama of the elder generations when we start a monthly cousin supper. I have been using my inheritance well for myself. I feel incredibly financially free now that I have paid off my student loans. I have put together a diverse investment portfolio in collaboration with a financial advisor. Additionally, I have some money saved up for the possibility of starting my own business in the future. I'm looking into starting a community center that offers affordable mental health services and courses on financial literacy. The most important use of the funds, however, has been for me to purchase therapy for myself and offer to do the same for Amy. We are both trying to move past the things that happened to us as children and are learning how to set healthy boundaries with our parents. Even though it's a long path, I already feel like I'm learning more and getting better at overcoming long-term bias and emotional neglect. My life has improved in some surprisingly positive ways as a result of this entire process. I've learned a lot about setting boundaries and protecting myself. Even though I know I made the correct decision, it hasn't always been simple, and there are still challenging days. I'm proud of myself for defying pressure and guilt. One of the most surprising outcomes has been a shift in my career path. I've been able to recognize my own interest for helping those who deal with family dysfunction after dealing with all of this family strife and going to therapy. I'm considering going back to school to become a family therapist with a focus on adult offspring of emotionally immature parents. Additionally, I have been assisting children from difficult family situations at a local youth center. It is incredibly fulfilling to be able to provide the kind of support and encouragement I wish I had received as a child. I'm even thinking of spending some of my fortune to start a scholarship fund for kids in similar situations. My communication with Amy has continued to improve. We celebrate a siblings' day once a month, where we do something fun together. Last month's hike and lunch was the most relaxed and intimate we've experienced since we were young kids. We are gradually re-establishing our relationship on our own terms, free from the influence of our parents. Things with my parents are still difficult. My mom has been working to mend our connection. She has been going to therapy on a regular basis and has even started to see some of the harm caused by her bias. We've had some candid, although difficult conversations about our history and future at a few one-on-one lunches. Even while it's not perfect, there has been progress. My father is still against change. He continues to claim that Amy and I should be grateful and that he has done nothing unlawful. He has skipped a number of family gatherings because he won't be in the same room as me. I'm attempting to let go of my need to force him to change his perspective or regulate his responses, even though it hurts. Grandma has become a rock for Amy and me. She's started telling us more stories about our grandfather, who was proud of us for standing up for ourselves. She has been an excellent mediator in family disputes because she consistently advocates for fairness and understanding. Many lessons on the true meaning of family have been taught during the entire process. I've realized that sometimes the family you choose may be more supportive than the one you grew up in. I have become closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins who supported me over this trip, in addition to creating a close-knit group of friends who have been very beneficial. I've also grown to realize how important it is to set boundaries and take care of myself. I'm getting better at saying no to situations that endanger my mental health, and I no longer feel guilty about prioritizing my own well-being. I had always put off exploring new interests and hobbies because I was so focused on trying to win my parents' approval. I would like to give advice to those in similar situations. Don't let anyone make you feel terrible about obtaining what is rightfully yours. It's fair to protect yourself, even if it causes controversy. Despite the complexity of family dynamics, you deserve to be treated fairly. Never forget that it's never too late to start living the life you deserve. If required, seek therapy. Surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. Your value is determined by who you are, not by how your family treats you. Again, I want to thank all of you for your encouragement and suggestions. During a really difficult time, it meant more than you could have ever imagined. Despite the challenges, I am looking forward to the future and feel confident in a way I haven't felt in years. I'm eager to see where this new phase of my life will take me, and I'm determined to break the pattern of partiality and improve the connections in my own future family. I appreciate you watching. Please hit the notification bell and subscribe if you haven't already in order to receive updates on more startling real-life stories that are happening in your area.